Hi everyone, I'm Sonal and I'm here to present a very interesting session on how to structure a content led program. Joining us today is Prashant Jain, CMO HP India. He has 15 plus years of experience in brand management, category management, e commerce, media, and marketing with prominent brands across industries like Unilever, Flipkart, and HP. Welcome, Prashant. It is a pleasure to have you with us, and we are all geared up for a very insightful session on decoding the secrets of structuring a successful content led program.
Thanks, Sonal. The pleasure is all mine. Looking forward.
Great. I think so. To kickstart the session, Prashant, I'm going to hand it over to you, wherein you can present, how HP as a brand has used content through its Creator Garage and Print Learn Center initiatives to deliver, to make a difference in their consumers' life and to improve their brand association and a brand experience. So over to you, Prashant.
Sure. Thank you so much. What I'll do is that for the next maybe 15, 20 minutes, talk about a framework which has really helped us structure the content programs here at HP. And then maybe I'll bring this framework alive using a case study on how really these programs have come alive for our audience. Uh, you see, the beauty of content programs is that if you really spend 100 hours developing a program, our mantra is that we spend the first 40 hours just thinking deeply about the problem. And that becomes very critical because content programs, just like long term campaigns and long term brand creation, need to depend on core insights which stay true for the customer over a long period of time, right? So the framework which we'll use today is it's actually a very well-known framework. It's typically either called the 4C framework or category, company, consumer culture framework. It really digs deep into customer insights from these four areas. Yeah. So let's maybe talk about category insights and the way we run this is to we first brainstorm on questions which can help you uncover insights about the category which probably have not been so obvious in your day-to-day running of the business. So specifically looking at category insights, right? uh, One question to ask yourself is, how are you really viewed by your audience today? Are there things in the market which are disrupting the status quo? And then what's really happening in the market from a category context? Because typically in our day-to-day lives, we get too, wound up and too involved in what the competition is doing, right? And therefore, it becomes important to really again ask yourself before your programs go live, uh, is as to who are really your competitors, and are they really the ones you should be looking at the world through a prism of, or is it really that they have stopped mattering to you? So let me bring this question again alive through what was really happening with the print category 2 years back when we started thinking about programs which should go beyond regular campaigns and product communication. So this is what we really saw when we looked at data over a long period of time. We saw that the monthly print volume in the category was really going down. The total addressable market when it comes to printers, which were installed at home, they were declining over time, and the installed base itself was actually becoming less and less active, which really means that printers which were existing and installed with customers were not firing as much as they were firing earlier, right? Uh, and then this came brought us to the next bucket of asking questions about what is the data which we see around our company and our category, right? what we saw really, which was changing post March 2020, was that learn from home had suddenly started generating category interest. And very obviously, it was happening because a lot more customers were learning from home. But early in 2020, this insight was not as obvious, right? And what is the impact it will have on printers, or will it really have an impact on the category, wasn't that obvious. But when we looked at the data, we saw that searches related to printers were rising after a long, kind of stagnancy. Uh, and it was a kind of a secular rise. When we looked at our social listening data, we saw that printer discussions in social media and in forums, and again, these were discussions with intent to buy, they were going up. In We had this, very successful HP Smart app with a few million users in India, and we suddenly started seeing that India had become, the top of the chart when it came to growth of the Smart app, and more than half of India's users has actually started using the Smart app in the last 3 months, right? And this really showed you that in the short term, the usage of printers and the way printers, more importantly, are used was changing, right? Now, this therefore brought us to this third bucket of what is really happening culturally with our customers. The questions to ask, are really this: what is really, piquing the interest of your customers here? Who are they really, sitting up and listening to, and therefore who is influential in their lives? What's entertaining, right? And what are really the issues which they are grappling with on a day-to-day basis? So again, when we deep dived into these questions, what we saw was that while there was a lot of chatter around learn from home, if you looked at parents of 3 to 6 years olds, which were really early learners, right, early years learning students, they were the ones which are struggling the most to meet core learning outcomes, right? Now, culturally, the less said, the better about education in India, right? It's one of our single biggest categories when it comes to expenditure from Indian households. We know how the size of edtech has kind of ballooned in the last 2 years. Early years edtech, particularly, was almost growing close to 100%, right? And there were already 35 million users who had adopted edtech in some way or the other. However, when you looked at what customers were saying a bit more closely, you saw that parents were, really not happy with what tech solutions were doing or how suitable they were to earlier students. And therefore, a lot of them were resorting to homeschooling. And there was a tension here, right? And there was a very clear issue here. There was concern about screen time because while it was okay for elder students to kind of take to the screen, for earlier students it was looked at as something which was addictive, which was harmful for eyes, for the brain, and so on, and it's all coming up in the chatter. And the other thing which we had to look at was usage data from programs which we had been running in the past, like PPL or Pray Learn, and we clearly saw that it was parents of 2 to 8 years old children who were responding the most positively to these programs. So this is just to give you a sense of how cultural insights play such a strong role in developing programs which are purely content led, right? So, and I'm skipping a few slides to really come to the crux of the matter. After all this research and understanding, what we zeroed in down was we said that there are really these two personas whom we really need to solve for. There are parents of early years learners who are looking for blended learning. When I say blended learning, I mean off-screen learning, not only screen learning, to help meet learning goals. And then there were the parents of middle years learners who were looking for supplementary learning beyond curriculum, right? And these were the two, say, sets of consumers who were asking for help, and they were not getting enough help either from institutions or really from brands, right? And these were households which had dedicated learning PCs, they had broadband connectivity, even if they did not have a PC, a lot of them had internet connectivity through the smartphone, and therefore, this is what really, kind of the two personas which we decided to focus on and to kind of solve for in some way or the other. So, what I'll do now is, instead of getting into the details a lot more in theory, let me try and uh, maybe give you a bit of a demo on what we really ended up creating, right? And therefore bring alive the problem, or the solution through what customers see in the market, right? So I'm now going to share uh, what customers eventually saw, right? Yeah, I hope you guys can see this
Yes.
screen. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay, so this is therefore what we put together. What we said was that, hey, can we create a platform which gives customers one easy access to education solution which solves for their problem, right? And now look at how we solved for each of the issues which we had identified there.
Yeah.
The first thing which we said was that building a strong foundation is very important, right? And why are we talking about a foundation? Because we are talking to early years learners, right? And a lot of parents, the way they talked about education in early years was to say that this is the time when the foundation of the child's learning is laid, right? And therefore, it's very important to have these core concepts being strong for future learning to really happen. The second thing which we said was that, hey, there is clarity which is needed on fundamental concepts, right? So it's an expression really of saying what you should really be doing. Thirdly, we talked about logical reasoning, problem solving skills, because these were the problems which creative expression, these were the issues which the parents were talking about the most, right? When it comes to specifically what do you solve for. And the fourth big problem which culturally people were facing was how to engage kids in off-screen learning, right? And therefore, this is what we kind of promised. What we did was we created a structured program. It's a 1 year program, 52 weeks of content, which kind of gets put out for ages 3 to 12. And if you look at it again, each of these elements now come from the 4C model. We decided to talk about age and not about class, because most parents were concerned that the content which is out there, I'm not sure if it is age appropriate, right? And whether it's coming from right experts, is it researched, and so on. The other thing which you see here is the need to, look at content in a structured manner. Now, it's not as if there were not enough worksheets on the internet. There were enough worksheets, right? But then you found some, you downloaded some, and then you didn't know what to do next, right? And therefore, this is what we put out. We structured the program in a way that it became easy for the customer to really know what to do every week, right? And then obviously a lot of parents were not really sure whether they know how to teach, and therefore we've put together videos which help parents become teachers and know what to teach. Therefore, they are sure that they are not kind of mixing up the child's education or understanding, right? So this is really how, kind of one example where we kind of structured the program. And it's doing reasonably well. We have around 600,000 subscribers who've kind of bought into the program. They engage with the content on a weekly basis. We are seeing strong evidence of the content being downloaded, the content being printed, and therefore the number of printed pages every month going up. New households adopting printers because they see the role of the printer in education very clearly.
Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of old households who had printers were not using them, now starting to fire them back again, right? So Yeah, that's maybe a bit of how the 4C structure comes alive for one of our content programs. Yeah. So
No, absolutely brilliant, Prashant. I think Print Learn Center is a great model of the way content is getting presented and the way it has been structured. The entire program for different age groups, helping children to have more stuff to do even offline, and not only online. And being a mother of a 7-year-old, I can so resonate, with this entire program. Very again, great initiative and very well done there. So, moving on, we have some questions, Prashant, wherein we would like to have your insights and suggestions on
sure.
how brands and even creators of content can structure their content programs wisely. Um, so like at HP you have done Print Learn Center, and you have done Creators Garage, and there are other large brands like Adobe who are also doing a lot of content led programs. And while presenting, you did mention the reasons you why content led programs would make so much sense. I would just like to know, if you could just summarize once again why big brands are exploring content led programs.
Yeah, sure. See, pulling back a bit on how do brands really grow, right? And this has honestly been kind of a matter of debate, understanding. A lot of research has gone behind this area in the last 40 years or so, and it's very clear that the brands typically grow through three ways, right? They grow by increasing salience, which is mental availability in the customer's mind. They grow by meaningfully differentiating themselves, right? So uh, if you look at these, 2 3 ways of brand growth, and I'm sure there are other ways which the world will discover over time. But there's growing realization that this campaign centric model where you created campaigns to increase mental availability and at the same time differentiation and meaningfulness, and then you did product communication. But there is declining efficacy of this model, when it comes to meeting these objectives of salience, differentiation, meaningfulness. And it's happening for a lot of reasons, because of media fragmentation, just too much communication, and so on, right? And obviously growing mistrust of the customer in advertising. On the other hand, there are enough brands which have demonstrated that you can build loyal and profitable relationships with customers if you really deliver consistently valuable content,
Right.
right? So the mystery for me, honestly, is that why aren't enough brands exploring content-led programs, right? And not as to why would a brand do it? Yeah.
Super. So, just taking the cue from that, Prashant, what according to you should be the process of determining what goals should your content program be serving, and how would you structure, how would you identify the audience and buyer persona?
Yeah. So, uh, see, that's an interesting one, because one thing which I always tell at least my team is that content must be a means to an end. It should not be an end in itself. So if you have a brand salience goal, right, and it can be met through a, say, a 30-second film, then by all means do that, right? Don't do a content led program, right? But if you have a long term goal to go after, right? And for example, one worthy goal for me is to look at meaningful differentiation for your brand, right? So if that's a goal which you want to go after, then probably a content led program is a great tool to kind of explore. Uh, See, on persona identification, let me again maybe take an example from HP, and maybe in a very different category, right? So, at HP, for example, we have a goal to meet the needs of gamers, and our goal is to meet their needs meaningfully, right? Through technologically superior products, and at the same time through appropriate content.
Right.
But gaming has the most varied, and it has the biggest or possible audience,
Audience.
from
Absolutely.
really casual gamers playing Candy Crush on their phones to gaming enthusiasts who are only
Absolutely.
watching esports,
Absolutely.
right? So now in the PC gaming category, because we are in PC gaming,
Hmm.
we've chosen to build a persona around mainstream gamers who are really looking to level up their gaming skills, right? So
Right.
one definitive way is to, if you want to choose a persona, is to root your persona on your source of growth, right? If your source of growth, is well defined for your business, that should become really the foundation for determining what should really therefore be my, content persona. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. Because ultimately, what you're wanting to do as a business is grow and also create an experience for your consumers in whatever way that you can. But in today's world, Prashant, all the creators have so many platforms, in which they can actually showcase their teaching skills. Like, for example, today, if I want to learn graphic designing, I have just too many options available for me. So, what, in your opinion, is that one factor of differentiation that creators should keep in their mind that would set them apart from others?
Yeah. See, typically a tough question to answer, but honestly, for brands, I think that the answer is, pretty kind of simple, right? Because uh, see, the most obvious way your content program can be different is when your content is unique, right? And probably that's the first advice which everybody kind of gives creators, that hey, make content which is different, make content which is unique, stand for something different. But I do feel that brands sometimes overthink this aspect, right?
Right.
uh, I think you can run, not with completely me too content, but I think you can run a very successful content program which is probably superior on discovery, or on delivery, even if it is not, very very unique on content. So I mean, take the we just talked about the PLC example, right? The internet is flush with worksheets,
Right.
right? This is not the first time somebody's put out learning worksheets, and this will not be the last time
Right.
when customers are seeing learning worksheets. There will always, be enough and more worksheets available for people to download. But the problem is that when you look at those worksheets, we could clearly see that there is no structuring of those worksheets.
Right.
They're just like a repository, the internet is a repository, you go and then you get lost on where should I start and where should I end. And therefore, I believe the big value which we've added is by, working with the top
Structure.
educators in the country and structure, yeah, just the structuring of it, right?
Right.
And then obviously on, delivery, on the way we do engagement through characters like Chota Bean, the way we build trust through, top educators, problem resolution, consistently refining and upgrading content, and then, really having a full-fledged pedagogy around early years learning. Those are some of the things which have worked, honestly. Otherwise, there's not a lot to differentiate when it comes to, early years learning worksheets. Yeah.
Right. I think discovery and deliverability are very, very key aspects to consider in definitely in content-led programs, because if even if it's not that you can have a differentiating factor each and every time when you're doing something, but if you can really make an impactful experience for anybody in whatever space that you are into, it makes all the
Yeah.
difference. Perfect. Thanks. Great. So, moving on quickly to my next question. What, in your opinion, Prashant, is the mistakes more often than not marketeers are making during the program creation process?
Yeah. See, maybe let me talk about two, and honestly, both emanate from, losing sight of your customer or losing sight of the goals which you set out when you started the program. Right. The one is really, I see a lot of people getting carried away with brilliant communication ideas, right, when doing content programs. And I think we must differentiate, this in our minds, that content-led programs are not so much about communication, right? If you look at the Print Learn Center or even the Creators Garage, we haven't invested in any video communication content. We've invested all our money in just creating great, content
Content. Yeah.
which customers consume every day,
Yeah,
and
which is
not,
the heart of,
yeah,
which is
which
the
is the
crux.
heart of really the program.
Yeah.
What happens is that you get this brilliant communication idea, and because as marketers we love communication ideas so much, you start investing in that idea, and then you spend more money on communication and less on content. And that really is, where you give space for others to kind of creep in, right? The second thing is that you kind of get insecure about the link between content and commerce too early in the life stage of your program, right? And therefore you get drawn into maybe a non-program goal, like let's saying that, oh, let's do a product launch, on the top of our product of our content led program. And that is what takes away from the heart of the program. And you start losing customers who kind of just start seeing you as yet another commercial venture hiding behind a content program. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. In fact, my next question was just about that. Engaging, taking a cue from your last answer, that we start linking content with commerce very quickly, right? Because engaging consumers using a content-led program can be a longer game. Okay, so so brands normally are a little concerned about the viability of having it as a part of their marketing mix, because it may not have a immediate commercial benefit or ROI on it. So, do you have any advice or tips that you would like to bring in here, or you'd like to put some light on?
Yeah, I'm saying my, the first question or the first thing which I always say is that, if you're concerned about viability of the program, and if you doubt that you will not be able to hold it for too long, then, don't do it. Stay away from content led programs, because content led programs are not like, campaigns. They will not give you,
Immediate return.
definitive ROI within, the second week of launch.
Yeah.
You will get early, ideas, or an early sense of, whether it's clicking or not clicking through some customer feedback. Uh, and I always believe that, if it is not working at all, then you should fail fast, right?
Yeah.
There's no harm in that.
Yeah.
However, if you don't think that you guys have the patience to, kind of stick it out for maybe 2 to 5 years, then, stay away and find another way of driving growth for your brand. The other, kind of advice, and this is really in hindsight, right? It's that, choose large platforms. When I mean I talk about platforms, I am talking about ideas as platforms. uh, when you're starting off with your content program, don't choose very narrow platforms. What I mean is that, often I see, content around campaign ideas, right? And because campaign ideas for the right reasons are narrow and sharply focused, it, takes away from this entire content marketing as a initiative.
Yeah.
And then you start evaluating incremental ROI around the content which I made for a campaign, and then obviously it doesn't work, and you turn around and say, hey, content marketing doesn't work. But I mean, take the Print Learn Center example. I mean, it's not as if it was a new idea. We started with, print, play, learn. And again, this is hindsight, right? So it was a good idea at that time, but it was too focused on art and craft, right? And
Mm.
therefore it worked for the first 1.5 years, and then we started running out of enough customers who cared enough about art and craft, right? And which made us rethink the program and go on to learning as a whole, right? Which is a much larger platform, and I think it gives you enough runway and enough width to create content for the next few years. So choose, large platforms when it comes to content creation, It will just help you, kind of give more shelf life to your program. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think for marketeers, it's been more campaign led or campaign driven, which is very specific, or which has a very crisp goal. So I'm going to take you back a little. So prior to being in HP, you have been with Unilever and Flipkart, and these organizations are also heavily focused on content. Okay, but then they do have a lot of content in their marketing plans, but they are more to relied or tilted towards user generated content, right? So in case of user generated content, what should a brand or a creator be wary of, or should keep into consideration to the extent of how much of a user contribution should be there to the entire content plan?
Interesting question. See, when it comes to UGC, one question which within the ambit of your program that you should ask yourself is that, can one of my users add value to another user, right? So if you look at it, let's take the example of e-commerce, right? User
Right,
generated reviews are very useful as content, right?
right.
Because they help in decision making for other users. Now
Perfect. Yes.
ratings are very useful because it gives you social proof. People find safety in the number of ratings,
Right.
and therefore it's kind of useful. And I mean, not only social proof, it could even give you entertainment value, right? When users are generating content and it's being consumed by the users. I think the other question to ask is, can UGC give value back to the generator of the content, right? Whether it is social value in terms of recognition or even financial value through incentivization. So if those two are true, then I think and I mean, if you get positive answers for those two kind of questions, then UGC is kind of definitely a route to take. See, on a related note, one area which is probably not as explored as UGC is supplier generated content, right? And I mean, take the example of Creators Garage, right? When we created the Creators Garage, we were very clear that maybe 30% of the content which we put out will be our own content, and the rest of it is syndicated content or curated content which is coming from suppliers, and it adds width to the program. At the same time, it adds value to the user, it adds value to the supplier,
Got it.
right? But therefore, you see, increasing content width, can there are multiple routes, like UGC is one reasonably good route if value is getting generated for the user and for the users, but then maybe supplier generated content is another great way. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think, if there is a benefit to the generator of the content, there will be a whole lot of meaningful content which will flow, in the ecosystem, which is going to be beneficial to everyone, the consumer as well as the generator. Cool. Moving on to my next question, Prashant. Generally content is created to suit product requirements. Can you think of any examples where the content has led to shaping up of a product and then led to its growth?
Oh, that's a difficult one. uh, See, if you look back at and let me just maybe first think about you know uh, say content led programs which I have run in the past. uh, there was there we had actually, I remember we had got celebrities to once endorse a product, and when we tried to create a lot of UGC led through celebrities, and the campaign picked up really well, and therefore we extended the content led program onto our pack, right? And it just gave the entire program a lot more shelf life, and a lot more kind of impact to the program. So limited edition packs and are quite a rage. But for me, packaging therefore is definitely one place where you should find a way to extend your program to. And I've seen very successful content led programs coming back to influence the packaging. Yes, I
Yeah.
think one of your users is talking about the Michelin Star Guide,
Yeah.
outstanding content led program, which actually became the face of the organization for a long, long time. Yeah. So completely agree, Jeet. I think that's kind of the gold standard of what we should all kind of look at creating. Uh, I do when I talk to SaaS companies and founders, there definitely talk about how content, and not only content, how customers interact with their content determines what they do next with the product.
Right.
So I think a lot of growth marketing today relies on how customers are really interacting with your content. So probably that's another way where content could kind of help you shape the product future. Yeah.
Cool. So we have about 5 minutes, and I'd probably ask you one last question, and then if we see if we have any other questions from the audiences that we can answer, Prashant. So my last question to you would be that what do you think are the key metrics that need to be monitored to adapt a content program to audience feedback?
Sure. See, for me, when you begin the program, early kind of months or years of the program, for me, a big metric is referrals, right? Are you getting referred, almost 20-30% of your new customer acquisition?
Hmm.
Is it happening through existing customers or not? Because that is really for me the proof of the pudding as to
Right.
customers are finding my content so useful that they are
Absolutely.
telling others. And in fact, I remember for Print Learn Center this number was as high as 50%, right? Because
Wow.
when we started off, parents just found it so useful that they just wanted to share it in their WhatsApp groups, on social media and so on, and tell people, hey, we found this really structured program, and I know that you have a child, why don't you use it as well? So that's one. The other important thing is just action taken, right? See, content is
Right.
about action, right? So
Absolutely.
if the customer is taking a engagement action, if she's taking, for example, in our case, downloads,
No.
I just wanted more and more people to be using my bitly link and just downloading content. Just take the content, right? And just send the link to as many as people as possible, or hit the subscribe button. So as long as they're taking action basis your content, I think that's probably a great north star metric. And then
Metric.
obviously as the kind of program matures, time spent on the program becomes important, and overall engagement, new user acquisition on the program becomes more important. Yeah.
No, I think perfect. Totally, makes a lot of sense. I think three very, very important aspects, or three very important points that you touched upon. I think everybody who believes in having a content-led strategy or a content-led program, definitely needs to monitor these three things to know the success of their program, or how well the program has impacted the actual users of the program. Great. It was a great session, Prashant. Absolutely a pleasure having you and talking to you. Thanks for the amazing insights that you gave us on how a well structured content program can bring about so much of meaning to a brand as well as the users. Before we part, Prashant, is there any one statement or one thing you would like to leave our audiences with about content led programs?
Uh, Probably just reiterating what I said earlier. Content-led programs, unlike campaigns, they. So I think the analogy which is coming to my mind is a sprint versus a marathon, right? So content-led programs are like running a marathon.
Marathon.
So, and anybody who's kind of run a marathon would agree with me that it becomes so much more about, mental perseverance versus, the physical resource which your body has, or, what you have available. So, that's how content-led programs must be approached. Look at it like a long-term marathon which you are, running for long, and you will get through if you kind of just persevere. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's great. I think that was a great analogy, and I think I'm going to keep that in my mind, going forward. Thank you so much, Prashant. This was amazing, and thanks a lot for your time. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Great talking to you guys. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.